Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Girlscript Verna. Girlscript is India's first and biggest tech community and is working to change lives by imparting education and relevant skills. Through Girlscript, we are able to share this session with you all, and I hope you guys take something away from this session. Sarvesha Fatte and I, Harmanpreet Kaur, are part of Girlscript community as campus heroes of Padre Kosasau College of Engineering, Verna. We are helped by our chapter leads, Riya Patel and Sanjit Parab, to organize this event. What are Google Actions? Google Actions are the apps of smart speakers. They work specifically with Google Assistant, or you may better know it, the voice on the other end of your OK Google queries. Through these actions, third party can get involved and design their own uses of Google Assistant. Google Action work with any Google Assistant device. To break down this extensive topic to understanding, we have with us Mr. Sachin Kumar. He is a Google developer expert. He is founding team member and a chief technology officer at TupeloLife, and he's a head of GDG Doha. He's a speaker, writer, blogger, mentor, and a YouTuber. He developed an early fascination for technology and since then has always been on quest to learn, share, and innovate. As CTO, as CTO at TupeloLife, he has evaluated the company in the connected healthcare ecosystem by using various innovative technologies from this from its inception to date. He also loves to share experience and learnings of the products and services with the community and to inspire them to build a better future. Over to you, Mr. Sanchin.
Thanks a lot, Harman. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone who's joining us live from different parts of the world. Once again, it's an honor to be part of this session, and thanks a lot, Girlscript, for inviting me to be part of this. So I'm super excited to actually share with you all today on how to build actions for the Google Assistant. So before we get started, let's try and keep this as interactive as possible. So make sure to leave your comments in the comment section, and we will, once we have a specific time slot, we'll try and answer those sessions or Q&A as well. So we'll have a Q&A session basically. And at this point, what I would really enjoy doing is, apart from there are multiple resources out there, I'll give you tons of resources to begin with, but also the fact that we will actually be building something from scratch today. So building actions on Google is very simple, it's easy, and I would love to see how you guys go and take this to the next level. So with that being said, today's topic is going to be what are the multiple ways we can build for the Google Assistant. As the introduction is already done, Haman kind of went through most of the things. So I'm a Google developer expert for the Google Assistant. I'm the CTO of TupeloLife. I also have the Google Developer Groups Doha. I do write a lot of articles, tech blogs. Recently, YouTube as a medium once we went into the whole pandemic situation. So that's been a quick introduction about myself. So the entire industry for the past few years have shifted in terms of computing. If you look at it, it's been voice driven to some extent. And what I mean by voice driven is every topic that you kind of see out there, be it your Google Assistant or Alexa, you'd see the rise of a lot of these smart home devices, smart speakers, assistants, and so on. So in this case, what we're going to do today is we'll go through the importance of building voice applications and how we can kind of do some demos, how you can build something and run directly into your Google Assistant as well. So people ask where the inspiration came from. At least for me, my inspiration was began directly from here. So I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this specific TV series. This was way back in the 1970s. And let's actually look at this specific video clip and understand what exactly is going on.
Library computer.
History files. Subject, former Governor Codus of Tarsus IV, also known as Codus the Executioner. After that, background on actor Anton Caridian.
Working. Kodos the Executioner. Summary. Governor of Tarsus IV, 20 Earth years ago, invoked martial law, slaughtered 50% of population Earth colony.
So here you can see that in terms of the overall experience, the vision was casted way back, right? I mean, for almost decades, everyone in the industry have been trying to come closer to how you can actually interact with computation through voice, because voice is one of the most natural language mediums that we're all used to. I mean, humans are the most common medium of having a conversation between each other is through voice. So voice is a powerful medium. So the industry has been trying to crack at it for almost decades. And finally, with advancements in machine learning, AI, and even the hardware, we've kind of come to a place where it's slowly starting to take shape. Okay, so it's not something that just came out a couple of years back. It's been something that everyone has been working on it for years. Okay, so speaking of voice assistant, one of the biggest names that comes to our head is the Google Assistant. So what is Google Assistant? Google Assistant is your own personal virtual assistant from Google to get things done for you in the most helpful manner. And why is it important for you as developers to build something for the Google Assistant? So here's a quick example. So the Google Assistant is currently accessible across 19 plus languages and 80 plus countries. And on top of that, once you build for the Google Assistant, your action is directly available across 1 billion plus devices. So that's the huge impact that you would have as a company, as a developer. If you're building something, the idea that that specific application or voice application or action. Again, the reason why I keep repeating action is when you're talking about voice applications, we tend to say it as actions. So that's the industry keyword or norm. So whenever I say action, just understand it as voice application. So your voice application or action would be accessible across 1 billion plus devices. So that's the kind of reach that you will have as a developer, as a startup, as a business, and so on. Okay, so in terms of the Google Assistant, I'm sure most of you have some idea of what a Google Assistant does. You would have seen it in demos. You would have seen it. You might already have it in your Android phones and iPhones. So you can say something like, "Hey G." I'm not going to say the keyword because it might trigger some of the devices that people have. But when I say "Hey G," it basically means "Hey," followed by Google. So that's the keyword. And once you have the trigger word and say something like "What's the weather?" or set an alarm at so and so time, or when do I have my next meeting? What's the agenda? So all of these things can be done by Google Assistant, right? So navigate to work, and all of those are automatically handled. So things like if you want to build something on top of the Google Assistant or leverage the Google Assistant framework, as developers, the first thing that you need to do is go to Actions on Google. So Actions on Google is a developer platform that lets you basically build actions that the users can invoke. So that's the platform where you go and build actions or voice applications for the Google Assistant. So I just wanted to make sure that I quickly go through this specific slide because this is important. So we are kind of taking all the possible ways you can build for the Google Assistant. So if you're a web content owner, so let's say you already have a website, or if you're thinking of creating a website, this is a great time as well, because as content owners, you can use something called as content actions. So let's say if you're having a website where you're writing a recipe, or you have a DIY website where you're showing how to build certain things, or you have a podcast or news or a lot more. So all of those specific content can be structured in a specific way so that the Google Assistant can automatically fetch that information whenever the user is talking to the assistant. Okay. As an Android developer, one of the most exciting and recent announcements that was done was app actions. So now you have the ability to extend your existing Android apps to Google Assistant. And we'll go through some of those examples as well. And most of you over here, I truly believe that you can actually work on the conversational actions. So conversational actions with interactive canvas allows you to build for the Google Assistant by actually designing custom conversational actions. And that will be something that we'll be doing today. Interactive Canvas is another framework where you can actually use your normal HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to kind of build visual interfaces, which is driven by voice. Okay, so we'll see an example of that as well. And finally, we have hardware developers. So if you think about building your own hardware device, or you already have an existing hardware device and you want to integrate with the Google Assistant, you can do that as well. So let's go through some of these items quickly. And what I want to spend more time today is to kind of give you what are the tools, available tools and structure, and then we can start building something from scratch, just to show you how easy it is to get started. And once that is done, I will give you the resources and YouTube channel links, and everything is, I think to some extent, it's already available in the live chat section. So make sure that you go and check those out for step-by-step tutorials. Okay, so let's talk about content actions. So anything that people are typically searching on Google. So let's say a traditional search, when you're searching for, let's say, what's the delivery fee for Uber, or Swiggy, or any other content, what happens is that the traditional way is it will just give the website link and you're done with it. But when you're interacting with the Google Assistant, if the content of your structure is structured using schema markups, then the Google Assistant will be able to go exactly to that content, fetch that information, and show exactly that delivery fee or subscription fee directly into the Google Assistant. So from a user's experience, that's what they're looking for. So think about when you're building websites or you're structuring content to use schema markups. Again, it doesn't mean just for delivery or subscription fee. You have FAQs, recipes. So if you try, give me a recipe for a certain cuisine or certain food, you would basically get step-by-step instructions rather than just a link. So as users, you can actually go through step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. So content actions are available across multiple mediums. So news, podcasts, recipes, FAQs, and how-to sections. So here's a simple example of what a podcasting would look like. So all you have to do is add this, just like any other RSS feed, right? And this is the content that you'll be adding. So let's talk about app actions. So as I said, for Android developers, this will be something very interesting, because now you have a way to voice-enable trigger your Android applications. And what I mean by that is, let's say that in terms of Android Assistant integrations, we have built-in intents, we have Android slices, we have Assistant read it, and Assistant sharing. So these are the 4 different options that's available for you as an Android developer. So typically what happens is you can see the average cost that companies use to drive installation, right? And you will also see that traditionally when we are all using our mobile phone right now, most of the common apps that we use is going to be mostly the social media applications. And any other kind of apps, you can see that the engagement kind of drops after a certain point. So how can this be helpful when it comes to integrating with the Google Assistant? That is when we are talking about app actions. So app actions will immediately help you connect with users on nearly 1 billion plus Android phones. Uses Google's natural language understanding. So instead of actually going through a sea of icons and trying to search for that specific Android application, and then to get that specific functionality, you just use voice to get certain things done. And it's almost a way to kind of fast forward into your app. Okay, so with that being said, let's actually look at an example. So this is just a demo example for you, and I'll show you a live version of that as well. So let's step back and see what we kind of typically do on a specific application. So you imagine you installed an application. After a week, you come back and you say, okay, I need to do certain action within that application. First, you'll be finding that application. The sea of all these icons that you have, you'll be scrolling. Second step would be once you open the app, you start selecting the items within it. Here is an option where you kind of choose each item one by one. Step 5, we indicate the toast level. Step 6, we define the quantity. Step 7, finally, we review the order. And step 8, we confirm, and then the order is complete. So almost for a user to order something, it took almost 8 interactions or 8 steps. Now let's actually fast forward and see if the same Android application is integrated with the Google Assistant using app actions. How does that look like? So with app actions, you have direct intent to fulfillment. So, and we'll go through what that means. So step 1 would be, instead of going through your icons, you would just say, hey G, and then you'll say, step 1, order 1 milk chocolate well done from Smos. So Smos is the app name. So order 1 milk chocolate well done. So you're already defining what the recipe or the content is. And just with a simple conversational statement and using app actions, it will directly open up your Android app, go to the section of your app where you have the order. So you're already fetching all the details through voice, and you're already presenting the user with all the information in just the second step, where all they have to do is click on confirm order. With that, it's done. So that basically kind of covers the entire aspect of having an interaction done within your existing Android app by just using the Google Assistant or voice. Here's another example of app actions. So you can just say like, hey G, start running, and then it will open up. So you can see over here, start my run in Nike Run Club. That's the app name. And then it will automatically start the activity. So it opens up the app, it goes to that specific section of the app, and then it automatically starts. And you can immediately start working out based on that. So as of now, there are 30 plus built-in intents for you to work with. These are some of the common built-in intents that's available. You can check these and see where your app falls under, and then kind of use that. I have a tutorial that I'm going to launch very soon based on how exactly you can build app actions to existing Android applications from scratch. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on Tech with Such YouTube channel, and you should be able to see this as well. I'll be also doing live streams weekly. So it's been almost a month that I've taken a break. So I'll be starting those weekly live streaming sessions as well. So you can go to youtube.com/techwithsuch. The link is actually specified in the comment section as well. So for Android application or Android developers, what I would say is all you need is actions.xml file. If you have an existing deep link to your application, that makes it even more easier. So all you'll have to do is define the intent name, the built-in intent, and then specify the fulfillment, which is your deep link URL. Okay, so that's how it works. And Android slices, again, is another way for you to actually get snippets of information from your app directly using the Google Assistant, right? So here you can see, check how many calories I burned today with Nike Run Club as an application. And then it will automatically go and fetch that information from the app and provide it in the form of Android slices. Assistant Read It is another option where, let's say you have a website or you have any content and you want to make sure that people can just hear the contents of your page, you can just add JSON LD. LD is linked data, and on provide assist content method to your application so that the assistant will be able to read the contents of your website. And assistant sharing is also another way. Let's say you're building a social media application or any other application where you want to share content. So you can use, again, the same JSON link data and on provide assist content to kind of integrate it within your application. So let's say you're sharing a photo or something. All you have to do is like share it with so and so person, and then it sends. You can see over here, send this to John. And the assistant is able to do that automatically just because of that. So finally, we move on to smart home devices. So in terms of smart home devices, you can see that we have different device types, device traits, and home graph, and so on. I'm not going to go deep into this because, again, that's a separate topic altogether. But what I would like to show is how I'm using Google Assistant in my day-to-day life and how it is deeply integrated at home. So generally how it works is, let's say if you have your own hardware device, you would have your own developer cloud. Okay, and let's assume that this is your hardware device. So whenever the user is talking to the assistant then sends it to your action, which is on the developer cloud. And from your developer cloud, you trigger turning on the lights or turning off the lights, and then the feedback is sent back. So that's typically how a simple smart home integration works. And recently, Google has launched something called as Local Home SDK. What that means is it allows you to build smart home devices, which can basically be operated via the local home or Wi-Fi, your local Wi-Fi. So next, we move on to conversation. Again, before we move on to conversation, because we'll be building a conversational lab today, let me skip to the part where we start looking at some examples. Okay, so here's an example of me building my own Google Home device. Okay, so this was done probably 3 years back. So the idea behind this is for anyone who's out there Google, trying to see how they can integrate the Google Assistant with their own hardware, you can do that easily as well. So here's an example. So what I've done is I wanted to, so wherever I used to go for talks and sessions, I had to carry the Google Home device, so which had to be always powered to the power source, right? All these smart speakers that you see has to be connected directly to the power source. So wherever I used to go, certain places, it had limited power sockets. And then I thought, okay, let me actually build something that is a little more portable. So then what I did is, what you're seeing here is actually a book, and inside this book is a Raspberry Pi device, and with Raspberry Pi and a power bank, which basically powers the Raspberry Pi, I used the Assistant SDK and integrated the entire thing directly inside the book. So the only thing that is visible outside, and which is, again, people wouldn't notice it in first glance, is this black thing on the top, which is just a mic. So that's like a $1 USB microphone. So everything is kind of like inside the book. So when you're holding it, it just looks like a book from the outside. But I can talk to the book using Google Assistant, and it will give me back the response. So here's an example of that. What's the time?
The time is 1:34 p.m.
Hey Google, how tall is Mount Everest?
Mount Everest is 8,848 meters tall.
Hey Google, tell me a joke.
This might make you laugh. What did the teacher do with her students' report on the history of cheese? She graded it.
Hey Google, sing a song.
Finally, it's here. I've been waiting for this chance. I could be on Broadway if only I could dance.
Hey Google. So as you can see, I could literally just take my book anywhere, and I have the power of the Google Assistant as well. So these are some of the unique ways how you can actually integrate Google Assistant into your own existing hardware devices, and you can do that as well. So keep in mind, if you're trying to go through for commercial products, you have to get certified as well. So there's a separate process for that. But if you're a student, let's say you want to integrate this and you want to play around with it, you can definitely use the Google Assistant SDK. Everything is available. I have a lot of contents that I've written in my blog as well, so you can check those out on how to do something like this. Okay, so that was an example of how you can integrate Google Assistant to your own hardware device. So next thing is, and this is the most common functionality of voice assistants right now. And with conversational actions, we are taking it to the next level. But let's actually see an example of how I use the Google Assistant in my day-to-day life. Again, the video is quite old. I think this was taken back in this was taken in 2017, April of 2017. So it's almost more than 3 years at this point, almost close to 4 years at this point. So here you can see how I control the entire home using the Google Assistant. Hey Google, it's TV time.
Sure, working my magic. Sit back, relax, and have fun.
So here you can see that when I say TV time, it will automatically turn on the projector at home. It will dim all the lights in the living room. It is turning on my home theater system, which you can see over here. It is switching to the right source. So I have like Xbox and the cable connected to it. So it is switching to the right source, and it is then playing the content. So all with just one keyword, which I've configured as TV time, right? So here you can see that it starts playing the content. Okay, Google, stop TV time.
All right, switching off TV.
So when I say stop TV time, it will again understand what needs to be done. It will start shutting down the projector. You can see all the lights have come back. to its usual state. Hey Google, cleaning time. And when I say cleaning time, it even turns on my vacuum robot. And technically that vacuum cleaner that you're seeing over there, that's not Wi-Fi enabled. So I used an integration with a few more devices to get this up and running directly with voice command. But hey Google, turn the lights in living room to blue.
Sure, changing all light bulbs.
And here you can see me control the lights in the living room based on Google. That. So again, this is just an example of some of the functionalities that we can do with Google Assistant. Home automation is a huge thing. Right now, from this video that you're seeing right now, there's a lot more integration that I've done, like even the curtains. I can open the curtains in the bedroom and close it. I have a smart lock, so whenever I leave home, let's say if I forget to close the door, I can be in any part of the world and just say Google to, lock the front door, and it will basically lock it. Okay, so here's some of the cool ways of how you can actually use Google Assistant. So I just wanted to kind of show that. And again, at the end of the day, if you want to build your own hardware, your own smart speaker, you can do that as well. Okay, so with that being said, let's actually go back to building conversational actions. So when we're talking about conversational actions, what basically happens is, on a high level, this is what happens. Whenever the user gives a query, let's say we create an action for Girlscript, right? So when the user says, talk to Girlscript, the assistant will do the speech to text conversion. So it will understand the speech from the user. It will then convert it into text. It will also understand that when the user says talk to Girlscript, if Girlscript is an action that is already available in the Google Assistant directly, then Google Assistant will understand, okay, I need to pass on this specific message to Girlscript. So the user input is then passed on to your conversational action that you're going to build, right? Or that you have built. So once you go to the conversational action, the Google Assistant will then get that information. Your conversational action, your backend logic can be processed here. And then the response from your action is then sent to Google Assistant in the form of text. Google Assistant would then convert it into speech and then provide it back to the user. So on a very high level, this is what is actually happening behind the scenes. Okay, so let's actually look at an example. When you're talking to your assistant or your voice application, it is always easy when we say, like, shall we get started? And you simply provide it with yes, right? So if there's only one option as yes, it's easy for you to handle it via code. But what if instead of just yes, the user says, okay, let's do it. I do, of course. Why not? Sure, okay, that works. And what if from there we have much more? Like, go ahead, perfect. Okay, yep, that works. So how can we kind of design our applications to basically understand all of these different possible answers from or response from the user? So that's where the natural language understanding comes into play. So the actions on Google platform already has the NLU built in. So what you need to do is to basically train the entire phrases, so possible phrases that the user might give, and the NLU and the machine learning will kick in and understand that, okay, this is what it basically means. I have some training phrases to work on. So if there's anything similar that the user gives in, it will identify that, okay, it will match it to a specific intent. And then you would understand what is intent. Intent is basically, let's say, what is the real intent of the user. So you can create intents within your application, and each intent can do a specific action, right? So let's say if the intent is to schedule an appointment, you can always create like a scheduler appointment intent. And the purpose of that is whenever the user says set an appointment at 3 p.m., you will understand that your assistant and your action will understand that whenever the user says something similar to that, I need to go to the appointment intent or the scheduler intent. So who does what? So let's understand that. So when the user gives the input, as I said, the assistant takes care of all the natural language understanding, conversion from speech to text, and then hands it over to your action. And from your action, you would process the information. Within your action, you'll have different intents and entities. So your intents will identify, okay, this is the intent that is being triggered. Let me send the response back. So when you're seeing something called as prompt is nothing but a response. So you generate the prompt from your action and pass it on to the assistant, and the assistant will then deliver that prompt back to the user in the form of speech or text or whichever medium. So previously, I think last year we launched the Actions Builder. Even before that, people used to build actions for the Google Assistant using Dialogflow. So if you go through my YouTube channel, you'll have a separate section for building chatbots. So Dialogflow is a great platform for building chatbots. And we used to build actions for the Google Assistant using Dialogflow before. But Google went back to the drawing board and kind of completely designed a new framework called Actions Builder. It's basically a web-based IDE where you can kind of visualize everything that you want your action to do. So it's fully integrated into the Actions console. So you don't need to go through a separate platform build there and then bring it to Actions console. So for people who are hearing Actions console for the first time, Actions console or the Actions on Google console is a developer platform where you build applications for the Google Assistant. And we have, so Actions Builder is a native way to actually build for the Google Assistant. So if you're just getting started building conversational actions, I would highly recommend that you try out Actions Builder. So with Actions Builder, you have a way to visualize your conversational flow. So we'll be building something through the Actions Builder today. So we have improved NLU, we have inline code editor, deployment. So everything that you need as a developer right from the start to configuring your action, to developing it, to testing it, deploying, and having the analytics of how your action performs, everything is kind of handled in one specific platform. So within Actions Builder, these are some key items that you'll need to keep in mind. So we have intent matching, we have types, we have scenes, prompts, and slot filling. We'll go into each of these one by one. So what is a scene? So think about a scene just like, I would say the easiest analogy is to kind of think like a director, or while you're making a movie, you have different scenes. So each scene, you'll have some characters talking with each other, and then from that scene, you move on to another scene where another set of conversation happens. So think about scenes similar to that. So within each scene, you have a way where you'll have your own intents and entities or intents and types that you match, and then you do a specific logic there. And based on certain intent matching, you would want to move on to the next scene. So scenes basically allows you to have the entire logic or container to hold each of these conversations. So when we're talking about what an execution of the scene lifecycle would look like, each scene will have an on-enter stage. So the moment you enter each scene, the on-enter, if you want to give out a message, you can do that. You can write conditions or logics directly over here. Let's say if the intention is you want to gather some key information from the user. So let's go back to setting up an appointment. So for setting up an appointment, you need the name, you need the date and time. So those are the key information that you're looking for, and to what service that you need the appointment for. So those are basically called slot filling. Slot filling allows you to capture those information, and you can make sure that those slots are required, so that only after getting all those 4 information, that the entire action would continue to the next scene, right? Until then, you'll keep the assistant, let's say you have a conversation like set an appointment at 3 p.m. and then you didn't provide your name or any other service. It has identified that, okay, I've got date and time, so today at 3 p.m. So what is the name? Name is not provided. So it will ask, okay, can you provide me the name for the appointment? Then once you provide the name, then it will check, okay, name is fulfilled, date and time is there, so I need only what service the user is looking for. Then it will ask, what service are you looking for? So those are basically called slot filling. And prompts are basically nothing but responses, right? So anything that you're building, and when you're sending back a response, that is called a prompt. So here's an example. So on enter, you can either use your own prompts, or you can even use your own web services or webhook to get that information. You can write conditions, and once the condition is either mandatory or optional, and then you go on to slot filling, and from the slot filling, then you move on to the next one, the prompts. Okay, so that's generally what happens. So Actions SDK is another version of how you can actually build. So let's say Actions Builder is a web-based IDE, so you can actually design the entire conversation. It's very easy. And there might be developers who would really like to start coding or do the backend logic. And they might be much more familiar to do it in their own IDE, right? So in that case, Actions SDK allows you, it's basically a file-based development setup where you can actually pull down that entire action that you have built in Actions Builder into Actions SDK, and then you can configure everything, and then you can write code it directly using the Actions SDK. And once that is done, you can then again push, and then when you go back to the Actions Designer, you will get the updates automatically done over there as well. So it's in a way how Google kind of thought about this is when you're building conversational actions, even today or in the future, there's going to be teams working on this. So you might have teams who are good in designing conversational flow. So they will design how the conversation should take place, how the flow should take place, the scenes, all of those things. And then you'll have the traditional developers who will then pull that entire project down, and then will use their own local IDE that they're comfortable with, and then do the backend integration. Okay. So here's an example of that. So we have the Actions Builder. You pull down the entire project from there. It goes to the Actions SDK, and any updates that you do to the Actions SDK will then can reflect back into the Actions Builder as well. Okay. So this is what the Actions Builder looks like. So let's actually start building something. So I hope at this point you'll have a very high level idea about all the different possibilities that you can do to build for the Google Assistant. Okay, so the next step that I'll do directly is go to console.actions.google.com. Let me go back to some. Okay, so when you're coming to this specific console for the very first time, all you'll see here is like start a new project. But how you can go there is go to console, demo.actions.google.com. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new project here for demo purpose. And let's call this Girlscript demo and create a project. Once you do that, here you can see you have different options of actually choosing what kind of actions that you'll want to build. So we have smart home, anything related to food ordering, or you're building a game, storytelling, or education. All of this are different themes or templates that Google Assistant provides. But here we are going to build our own custom conversational action. So just go ahead and click custom and hit next. Again, within that, you have different options that you would want. Again, we're just going to start from blank so that we have a better understanding. So click start building. So with just a few clicks of a button, we are basically setting up our project actions on Actions Console. So whenever I say Actions Console, it's basically this platform. So the Actions Console or Actions on Google Console is basically a developer platform where you can actually build for the Google Assistant. At any point, if you have any questions or queries, make sure to leave them in the comment section so that I'll be more than happy to cover that. So the first thing that you notice is immediately it has come directly to the Develop tab. We can see on the left side, you have something called as settings. So keep a note of this. Everything that you see on the left-hand side are all the options that you have. When you click on each of these options, then you have in this main UI, you will get to see the configuration. And then again, from here, whenever you click on certain things, you'll have additional a section that appears, like a much more detailed section. Okay, so let's look at what a display name is. A display name or your invocation name is basically how you trigger your conversational action. So in this case, let's say whenever you decide talk to Girlscript, you can add this as your invocation name. So whenever you're talking to the Google Assistant, when you say talk to Girlscript, if this matches, it will automatically start the conversation, right? So if you might have a smart speaker, and there are some guidelines for this. You can't just use any name. You have to use your brand name or make sure that your name is easily understood. So if you can always go and click on this to see how the assistant interprets this.
Girlscript.
So you can see that that's how the assistant interprets it, which is fine. And then what you can again do is come here and choose the voice for it, right? So you have female 1, 2, 3, male 1, 2, 3. So these are the different options that you have. So I'm just going to leave it as it is, and I just click on save. Again, this is something that you can do while I'm actually giving this information as well. So it's very easy. It's web-based, so you don't really need to have any specific setup specific to your computer as such. So the next thing that after we do this configuration over here, you can see also that you can also add other languages. So let's say you want to add languages like Hindi as part of it, you can target that as well. So moving on to the main invocation. So this is where the magic starts to happen. So you can see here, whenever we say talk to Girlscript, it will then invoke your action. And right now what it does is it will basically end the conversation. That's what is happening because we haven't designed anything more than that, right? So in this case, what we're going to is whenever the user says talk to Girlscript, you can click on this. So if I take this away, when you click on this, you'll get to see the details over here. Within that, you can see that we have two different options. One is call your webbook. So let's say that whenever people say, when the users say talk to Girlscript, you want to get the response, a dynamic response directly from your backend, you can enable this as a webhook. But for the purpose of demo, what we can also do is, I'm just gonna add something directly over here. So you can either provide the response in YAML or JSON format. So here you can see whichever you're most comfortable with, you can use that. So since YAML is much more cleaner, I'm just gonna use welcome to Girlscript. And you can do what I've done over here is say something like, welcome to Girlscript. We do online events and workshops. Would you like to know more? Again, this is something for demo purpose that I've just done. And then what happens is, so this is the prompt that you can see here. This is called a prompt. This is a prompt that will go back to the user, right? But you can also add something called as suggestions. So the moment I click here, suggestions, you can see that you have a title, and I can say yes, and then I can copy the same thing, and then I can say no. Okay, and we'll see what exactly happens at this point. So what's going to happen right now is irrelevant of whatever it is. It's just going to end the conversation, and that's all it's going to do. So just save this. So let's see whether we are able to get the response from the what we have kind of configured over here, or the prompt. And you'll also see that if you had configured your applications for multiple languages, so you can add Hindi and stuff like that. So you can choose the prompt. So this is English, and then you'll also find Hindi over here, and then add the response back in Hindi as well. Okay, or any other language. So as you can see, it supports up to 19 plus languages right now. So you can choose it for multiple languages. Okay, so in this case, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna have this information, go to test. We've already configured a simple response. So here you can see that whenever you're saying things like talk to Girlscript, and here's also another important thing. You would find tutorials in my YouTube channel as well, where we go through step by step and configuring the entire thing. As long as you're using the same Google account that you have on your phone or your smart speaker, you can actually trigger this directly into your smart speaker as well. Okay, so let's test this out. So whenever I say either through voice or through chat, I say talk to Girlscript.
Sorry, Girlscript isn't responding right now. Please try again soon.
So we need to configure a few more things over here. So if you go back, you can see that could not reserve your pronunciation because your action's display name must contain more than one word. Okay. Say something like this. Or for the purpose of time, I'll just remove it because we need to see which one actually works. And again over here, let's actually add, for the purpose of time, we have another 5 more minutes. So we have another set like yes, no. And when the user says yes, we need to move on to another scene. So how can we actually do that? So that's where we kind of have intents. So here what I can do is, this is where your whole machine learning and other things would take place. So I can come here and under custom intents, create an intent called yes. And I can create another intent called no. And when I say yes intent, all you need to do over here is add the training phrase. So I will say yes, why, sure. So add some few training phrases, at least minimum 4, and just save it. So the more training phrase that you have for your action, the better it is. In the same way, you can also see for no, I would say, let's say if you're typing and if you just want to say N, take that into consideration as well. Nope. So designing conversational actions is as simple as just training phrases and then you're designing the whole conversation flow. So now let's go back to, so we've created 2 intents, which is yes and no. So if you go back to your main invocation, when we click here, we have the main response. So welcome to Girlscript. We do online events and workshops. Would you like to know more? So you say yes and no. You can also see the same thing in the form of JSON as well. And then once you come down on the transition, you can see to which scene that you want to go, right? So here you can create a scene directly from here. Or let's call it start scene. Okay, any scene that you want, you can just go and create a scene over here. So within the start scene, so since we created a start scene here, immediately that you'll see under scenes, you'll find another section which says start. So now we've created a new scene called start. And over here, you can actually go ahead and add those conditions or the intent handling. So for example, here you see something called as user intent handling. So I can select that. And if yes, then I can, move on to another transition, right? If no, so let's choose another one, choose no, we can basically end the conversation. And we can change the response over here. Say, thank you. So save this. Again over here, so whenever a yes intent is there, we can again end the conversation or move on to the next scene. So let's say when the user says yes, you want to provide more information, you can just go ahead and create another scene. Sorry, you can go ahead and create another scene over here. Called next scene, and then you can add that information. Okay, and then when you add, it will then move on to the next. So that's how you kind of design the whole conversation. So over here, let me just end the conversation here as well. Just say, just awesome. So when you go to test right now, so the reason why we have the simulator is, let's say if you want to test for multiple devices. So the Google Assistant is available through mobile phones, speakers, smart displays. You can choose how it looks on each of these. And then let me reset all the test and let's try this one out.
Okay, here's the test version of my test app.
Here we go.
Welcome to Girlscript. We do online events and workshops. Would you like to know more?
So here you can see that our first prompt, whenever you have the main invocation, we have the script that's coming through. You also heard it in the form of voice. And then since we added some suggestions, we have these buttons as well. So this is also a way how you can actually direct the users to a specific conversation. So in this case, if I say no,
Thank you. Come back later when you want to interact again.
you can see that it ends the conversation with that response. So let's try that again and see when we say yes, it should just end the conversation again, but just say yes.
Alright, let's get the test version of my test app.
Welcome to Girlscript. We do online events and workshops. Would you like to know more?
And if I say yes,
Awesome.
right? So instead of ending the conversation over there, if you come back, and again, I'll just quickly do this just to kind of give you an idea of how the whole flow is going. So when I click on yes, we have an intent, we have a response, and then instead of ending the conversation, let's create another scene. And the scenes can be created in two different ways. So either directly by adding the scene name here, or I can go to scenes. Under scenes, I can just add next scene and enter. Now we have created a new scene. Now you can come back to transitions again, and you can see that that's available over here. So under the next scene, hit save. So what should happen? So when you say yes, we go on to the next scene, and then we have a whole new section again. So on enter, you can again give more details. So you can click on enter, give a prompt and say, awesome, you can learn by staying Girlscript. Okay, so again, you can provide more information depending on what you want to show. And finally, you can just go ahead and click save. And now when you go back to testing your application, so all the saved content is being now processed. I just hit reset test, and let's go through with this again.
Okay, getting the test version of my test app.
Welcome to Girlscript. We do online events and workshops. Would you like to know more?
So I can basically say, if I say yes now, it should now transition to the next scene.
Awesome. Awesome. You can learn more about us by visiting Girlscript.
So here you can see that since we had the initial awesome, and then again we had added on enter of the next scene, we added this information. We have that directly accessible over here. So that's how easy it is to actually get started with the Google Assistant. So if you want to remove that double version of awesome, all you need to do here is when the intent is matched, maybe you don't want to put any message over there, and directly transition to the next scene. And in the next scene, we have just that awesome response, awesome. Then you can learn more about it in Girlscript, right? So that's how easy it is to get started with building actions, conversational actions for the Google Assistant. Again, I'm super excited to be part of this. I would love to see what you guys go and build as part of your own voice applications. Again, the links are provided in the comment section. Feel free to reach out to me via Twitter and send me what you guys have built so that we can use the hashtag AUG devs to kind of highlight and for Googlers to actually look at that as well. So, and another example, let's go through this again. And in fact, what we'll do is,
All right, let's get the test version.
let's try this on phone. So here you can see how the entire application would look on a phone.
All right, here's the test version of my test app.
Welcome to Girlscript. We do online events and workshops. Would you like to know more?
So if I say yes now, we transition to the new scene.
Awesome, you can learn more about us by visiting Girlscript.
That's it. So now we've removed that initial prompt that was there, and then we are only showing the prompt that is there in the next scene. So that's a quick example of what you can do with the Google Assistant. Before we end, I would also like to show you another thing. So if you go to youtube.com/tech-with-Sach, so you can hit the subscribe button, and over here, if you really want to get started with the Google Assistant, what I would highly recommend is to go through this specific playlist called Actions Builder and Actions SDK for the Google Assistant. And then you can also go through this Google Assistant tutorial series. So each of these playlists will actually take you through step-by-step instruction, right from configuring to having everything ready, so that you can actually try it out on your own phone, your smart speakers, and kind of build different applications. So that should basically give you a overall 360 view idea or tools required to actually build for the Google Assistant. The other thing is also the fact that I'm not sure whether you're able to see the screen behind me. So if we can go into the full screen of the camera. So over here, I have my phone, and let's show you some live examples. Okay, so this is the actual screen from my phone right now. So I can say like, hey Google, what's the weather? I can also say, I have two lights that's behind me. So I can say like, hey Google, turn the lights in studio room to blue. And I'm sure that you can see a slight difference in the back as well. So both the lights have turned to blue. I can also say, hey Google, lock the front door. And this would automatically lock the front door. And finally, I can say, hey Google, open the curtains. Hey Google, open the bedroom curtains. And this would automatically open the curtains as well. So with that being said, I hope you guys understood the power and the capability of the Google Assistant. And I'm super excited to see what you guys go out there and build. Feel free to reach out to me at any point with your questions or queries. I would do my level best to answer those. And I'm super excited to see what you guys build for the Google Assistant. With that being said, my name is Sachin, and see you all in the next one.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. I hope you all were able to take something away from this session. Thank you so much for attending the session. Thank you all.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.